This is the Leon Charney Report. And now, here is your host, Leon Charney.
We're back with another Leon Charney Report. We have some fun today. We have Renee Taylor and Joe Bologna. I hope Bologna it's hard to pronounce, but he'll tell you all about it. We felt that the Bibi Netanyahu government survived a no-confidence vote, so we could let you relax and have some fun. Renee Taylor, who's the nanny on, now the mother of the nanny, Fran Drescher, on that big hit show, is here with us, and her husband. And they're playing at the Bermuda Avenue Triangle at the Promenade Theater on 77th Street, I believe. I should know. I was involved with that property one time. And everybody says it's a great hit, and you're going to have a lot of fun. So before I start with them, I want you to go buy tickets. And if you don't go buy tickets, you're foolish. So why be foolish? Buy tickets. Renee.
Hi, how
welcome.
are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
With that voice, it's very hard not to like you.
No, actually, I'm English. And I just put it on a little bit. But I'm from New York.
Really?
You know, I'm from the Bronx. And the other day, I had a street named after me on 168th Street and the Grand Concourse.
What'd they name it?
Renee Taylor Street.
Boulevard?
Yeah.
Or Avenue?
On Grand Concourse. Yeah.
Avenue or Boulevard? Makes
no,
a big
Renee
difference.
Taylor Street, they called it, because Concourse goes this way and it goes that way. And I invited my family, but they didn't come because they said it wasn't a good neighborhood. So I hope that the city is going to make it a good neighborhood.
Do you remember Molly Goldberg in the Bronx?
City will make it a good neighborhood if they do the Yankee Stadium up there.
Yeah, it may be. And Joe got a star in Brooklyn at the Botanical Gardens the following Sunday.
Joe,
that was a thrill.
Let's make the star. What does it mean?
That's how they know you.
I thought with your name
So
on
people
Mott
stop you on
Street,
the
you would
street.
get Joe Bologna Boulevard.
So, but actually, Bologna in Italy is a Jewish name.
Yes, the Jews.
Jews traditionally in Italy took the names of cities rather than the names of their trade. So in Italy, people think she's the Italian and I'm the Jew, because Bologna is a traditionally Jewish name in Italy. So maybe back somewhere along the line, who knows?
Well, you two have had an illustrious career.
So far, but what time is it?
You know Steel and Mirror?
Yes,
Old
yes.
friends.
So they're like...
But we're much younger than them.
But there's two groups. There's you, Steel and Mirror, and that's it.
No,
We remain
that's
married.
not true.
Stephen Eady?
That's not true.
Stephen Eady?
And Jane Meadows and Steve Allen.
But did they really work together?
Oh, they work together.
Oh, of course they did that show, Meeting of the Minds.
They work together all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
I know they don't write together, but actually the writing together is the most fun.
Yeah.
We have to be able to go off to Vermont and to write, and we write love stories and comedies, and you can't be angry at each other if you're going to write that effectively.
but to
you
me
have to
the
laugh
most
and you
fun
have to be in love.
Is when you see Bermuda Avenue Triangle is to act with Joe, because every night I fall in love with him on stage.
That's nice.
So even if I'm mad, I go on stage and he smiles at me, and I fall. And
And I
he
know
says to
that.
me, "Did you know you have beautiful eyes?"
And I know that if we are,
This is the second time I'm in tears on this show. The first time was when Arafat turned down the peace treaty. Now that I know you make love on the Promenade Theater, I'm in tears. After 30
Yeah, watch
years
it.
of
I cry.
marriage.
I'm an Italian. I cry very easily, so you're going to get me going any minute.
Where did you two meet, by the way?
We had the same manager. I was doing a one-woman show.
Who was your manager?
Buddy Allen.
Buddy Allen, and he said, "I'm going to meet you." You know him?
You know Buddy?
Is this funny?
In prior years of my other life, I was a theatrical lawyer. Amongst my favorite clients were Jackie Mason, but the Ace Trucking Company, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Fred Willard, he became a little bit of a
That's right,
star.
sure.
Yeah. Dick Shawn.
Dick Shawn died.
Yeah.
He was in I'm Solomon on Broadway, produced by Abe Margulies. And I'll tell you an interesting story about that. I was hired because he got bad reviews. You remember Abe Margulies at Abe Steakhouse? Super show business type guy. He's deceased. And he hired me to sue the critics. And we were trying to find out a reason to sue the critics. So we found out that the critics had left during halftime.
Good.
And my theory was that a critic has a fiduciary duty to watch the whole show.
So did you win? Did you win?
I think we got a settlement. Yeah, I think we
How
did
much?
get a settlement. I think we got 50 rubles and 10 kronas.
But no, it's
And
the
maybe-
principle of
I
it.
think, no, I'm kidding you. I think we did win some substantial money.
That's wonderful.
Because he had put at that time, it's interesting for you people, I guess he put $1 million into the show. It was called I'm Solomon. Dick Shaw was really good, you know?
I'm sure it was.
So the critic, in half, walks out. And we felt that these critics who can destroy shows in a half hour have the duty
And
to
did
go
they
through.
destroy it?
Yes. Yes.
So-
and
so-
they did destroy it.
And it closed?
It closed.
And you sued and you won?
And we sued and we won.
Oh, but it's too bad you couldn't have reopened.
Because the damage had been done already. Once the
Terrible
perception
thing.
is out there,
To give people that kind of power is
it's
absolutely
terrible.
ridiculous.
It's terrible.
Because if a guy has an itch that night, he can't concentrate.
Or if his wife didn't love him like you love your husband.
Or if you're jealous.
Or if he
you say,
doesn't have
"Hey,
a wife.
Who the hell do they think they are
If he
to be
doesn't have a
happy?
significant other.
Who do they think they are to love each other?
You think we're trying to worm in on some critics here?
Yeah, no, it makes people crazy when other people are happy. They like people who
Did you get reviewed?
Yes, but we're very lucky because we got great reviews. We're
So
very
we love
lucky.
the critics. Today
Yes.
we love them.
No, but still, I don't. The great critics were Harold Clurman, Elliot Norton, those kind of people. But we were talking about Buddy Allen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go
So
ahead.
he introduced me. He said, "I'm going to introduce you to a guy who you're going to have a comic rapport with." And the minute I met him, I looked in his eyes. I said, "This is the guy I'm going to marry." I told him some jokes, and he laughed at the straight lines. I knew he was the one.
Then she told me the funny lines, and I didn't laugh.
I knew
Said
he
that-
was the right one even more.
Joe, do you consider yourself a comic, a writer? What do you consider
Well, I
yourself?
think basically, I started as a director. That was my first guild. But I really love writing. I mean, I love acting too, but it's an extension of the writing. When I write whatever I want. And unless I'm acting my own material, I'm acting what they give me, which is nice. They pay very well, but it's not as fulfilling an experience as sitting down and writing your own indigenous work. And when you write, we write in Vermont on a lake. I mean, it's idyllic and beautiful.
I've written a
Enjoy
book,
living.
and there is a terrific feeling about writing your own words, and it's like creating a child in a way. There's something special about being
Seeing
able to
the
write,
word.
because-
And also, you have,
That's
I mean, when you act, you have to have a piece of material, and you have to have a venue to act in.
Right.
When you write, it's you, pencil,
I don't
and
want
the paper.
your
and you can be
listeners
anywhere. You
to
can
think that I'm getting sexy, but it's a little warm, so that's why I opened my blouse.
we don't mind if they think you're sexy.
Well, I'm glad I didn't wear underwear
I
today.
mean,
You're not wearing any underwear?
I'll never tell.
If I had a choice of going to a show tonight and seeing a sex symbol, and I had a choice between Raquel Welch and Renee Taylor, it's Renee Taylor.
Hands down.
Thank
Hands
you.
down.
I mean,
Thank
she's
you.
having a rough time in Victoria. It's not that easy for her. But for 57, she's looking pretty well.
Annette Fabre, who's in our show,
Really?
is 76 years old.
Oh, yeah, boy.
She looks like $1 million, and she's looking, if you know a nice guy, who is a doctor, a lawyer.
It's funny though, because
Is she
sometimes
Jewish, Nanette Fabre?
No, but she could be.
she was married to a Jewish man. Wonderful writer. In fact, he was the head, the president of the Writers Guild. He wrote Mildred Pierce, among other things. A wonderful writer. It's funny. The other night, we often talk to the audience at the end, tell them, kibitz with them a bit.
No, because the show is about two people who are having an affair with the same man, and neither woman knows about it. Two women. And after the show, someone says, and it's a menage a trois. And so the rabbi comes and he's going to throw us out of the building for being immoral. And,
But in the end, he says, in the end, the last act is technically a menage a trois is when two people are aware they're in bed with the same person. Your menage a trois
He
was
wasn't
more.
aware.
Who knew? He
who
said.
knew, he says. But so people say to me, is this autobiographical? I say, no. Is anybody here in a menage a trois? So an old woman raised her hand and someone yelled out, you wish!
And then I said,
Then
we're
Joe says-
going to have a menage a trois night. We're going to give 3 tickets for the price of 2. But you have to prove it. You have to bring you have to have slides. Because anybody can come in just to get the free tickets, could say they're in a menage a trois.
But, you hit on a very interesting and substantive point, and that the rabbi was willing to rationalize the
That's
position
of course.
because he wanted it to suit whatever he felt was necessary at the point, which is really the power of religion. You can
No, but
find,
it's also-
you can
it's
find
very-
a good book saying anything.
That's right.
You can rationalize
but
it.
it's also some Sholem Aleichem humor, because
he was great.
he
Sholem
says to me when I don't want to be living there and I'm crying because our daughters dumped us there. Nanette Fabre is one widow. She's an Irish widow. I'm a Jewish widow, and our daughters dump us in a senior citizen. Very
Actually, the
exclusive
daughters do them a great service
favor.
by sending them out on their
to
own.
have fun.
Well, yeah, and to
I
get
think
them
I
off
saw
there.
a piece on this someplace.
Oh, yeah?
They told me it was terrific.
Thank you. And the rabbi says to cheer me up, he says, you can look at a glass. What does he say?
You could see look at an empty glass and see only the emptiness, or you could look at that same empty glass and be thankful you just had yourself a nice lemonade.
I'm going to cry again. This is Arafat and twice Bologna, and I cried for Arafat twice. Now I'm crying here twice. This is a hell of a show.
We work a lot alike, Arafat, Taylor, and Bologna.
He's a cute guy.
Renee, did you start as a comedian or as an actress?
You know what? It was hard. I started as an actress. It was hard getting work. And people said they're looking for a comedian. So I would go and be whatever if they needed a dancer, I was a dancer. If they needed a singer, I was a singer. So they said it was easier to get work as a comedian. So that's how I started.
Are you first generation American? Were your parents born here?
My mother was born here. My father was born on the boat coming over from Russia.
So the reaction when you wanted to be an actress?
My father said, you know, you could make a better living in men's clothing. My father started with a push
And your
cart
mother?
on the Lower East Side.
My mother was like, oh,
My mother always
thrill.
wanted to be an actress. My mother saw the big parade with Renee Aldoray, and she named me Renee after her.
My mother saw the same movie and loved it, and she called me Parade. My original name is Parade Bologna.
You didn't know that?
The character she does in the play.
Joe, when
is,
you decided to be are you first generation?
No, second.
Second?
My parents were born here.
What did your parents say?
My mother, of course, loved it because she loved film. She loved me going to show this. My father thought I was nuts. Here I had an Ivy League education. And
Where were you?
I went to Brown.
Really?
And
His father shined shoes on Wall Street
my
to
father,
put him
my
through
father's
college.
family were in the boot black on Wall Street.
Really?
They had boot black hat cleaning concessions all over Wall Street. And my father was like, thought I was absolutely nuts until I became successful. Then he saw, he came to see the play we did.
Lovers
And
and
he
Other
said,
Strangers, that was the first thing
he's
we
got
wrote.
talent. And as soon as he realized that, he was my biggest fan. He would be selling tickets to our play. He would be the first. He knew Variety inside and out. He'd get Variety first thing. Check.
And
all
when the
grosses.
Daily News reviewed our movie, and I heard him when I woke up in the morning yelling to his wife, Josie, 4 stars, 4 stars.
We got 4 stars, Josie. We got 4 stars. So I mean, he was great because he was afraid for me. He figured this one is not. I mean, nobody
no
makes
security.
money.
There's no
yeah,
security.
no, there's no security. But when he saw him, we sold our play. Lovers and Other Strangers. We made a pre-production deal, 1968, to Hollywood. We sold it the screen rights for $250,000.
And in that time, it was a lot of money. Today, it's nothing. I'm just kidding.
But
I
when he saw that,
can
he was
factor the
like,
dollars in for you.
he was like,
Today, it's $2.5 million, right? That was our first thing we ever
was that?
wrote.
Well, I'll tell you what it was.
1968. So it would be.
It's about 10 times the
Sure,
inflation
10
number.
times.
Yeah, look at the market.
Wow.
You can go against the market.
Is that right?
So you want to rescind and go back now?
No, but if we had
That's right. It'd be
saved
about
that money
It would be
today,
about $2.5 million.
Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, all these superstars who signed in 1980s were making $1 million contracts and thought it was the best thing in the world. Shaquille O'Neal makes $100 million for 8 years. He makes $15-20 million. So you can see the inflation. It's all inflation. So you were a big success in those years. Have you done film together?
yeah, we just did a film that opened last year. It was called Love Is All There Is, and we wrote it, we starred in it, we directed it together, and it was with Paul Sorvino and Lainie Kazan and Connie Stevens and Dickie Van Patten. It was a real
And you
thrill.
wrote it? You wrote
Yeah,
it?
we wrote it and directed it.
So you're basically, no matter what, you're really, at heart, you're a writer. Did you major in English literature at Brown?
No, actually, I majored in art history.
Engineering, didn't you?
I started as an engineer, and I was a man, switched to that. But I ended up my degree in art history, which I almost became an architect. I loved architecture. But I got into theater by accident at Brown, and I would work in the Catskills, and I got into tumbling. Only it was the Italian Alps, the other side of the mountains. And I realized I was good at it. And I said, well, let me go into theater. And then I started directing. I directed commercials and industrials and documentaries and things. And And I met Renee, and we started writing together.
Wonderful. We got a cut for a commercial break. We'll come back to a great couple, Renee Taylor and Joe Bologna. They're starring on Off-Broadway or Broadway, because it's on 77th and Broadway. And it's called Bermuda Avenue Triangle, and it's funny. I can tell you because I hear them. I haven't seen it yet, but I will go, and I promise you that I'll rave. We'll be right back. We're back. We're talking to Renee Taylor and Joe Bologna, an intelligent couple, aside from being very funny and appearing on Broadway at the Promenade Theater, the Bermuda Avenue Triangle. And it's a big hit, and we're going to show a clip. So you want to introduce it, Joe?
Yeah, well, I'm this ne'er-do-well who seduces these two women, and the women are so unhappy and so miserable that the audience loves me for doing it because they know only good things could come out of it because they're starting from so far down. So I seduce each woman in different ways. I seduce the Jewish woman with more sensitivity and poetry and dancing, and in this particular clip, I'm now dancing with her.
Tango.
I'm doing a tango with her, and I'm telling her what a wonderful dancer she is. Anyway, that's...
All right, let's watch the clip.
That's part of my seduction. You are a wonderful dancer. Now, I want you to tell me the truth. You've studied ballet, haven't you?
No.
Because you have a ballerina's body.
All right, Joe, what do we see?
Well, we saw my smooth seduction of Fanny Saperstein, which is the character Renee plays, who, by the way, is based by and large on Renee's mother.
Really?
My mother used to cry at everything. I would say, "Why are you crying?" And she'd say, "I'm angry." And she'd cry, "Why are you crying?" "I'm so happy." "Why are you happy?" "Why are you crying?" "I'm sad." That was the only avenue that was open to her. She cried about everything, and it's very funny. Although I hear people in the audience go, "Aww." And when I'm telling my life story, they're all going,
Which is
"Aww."
a study in victimhood. She tells the most horrendous story. Nothing went right for this woman. So therefore, when I come along and start seducing them,
The audience wants him to.
even though they know I'm doing a dastardly thing and I'm manipulating them, they know
They're happy for me.
because they know
And
something.
the Irish woman.
This has got to be good for this woman because these women are
And
so
people
far down.
afterwards say, "It should only happen to my mother."
Yeah.
And you know, Jackie Mason came and he said, "This is the funniest show, and I know funny." So we did a commercial where I go, Jackie Mason said it's the funniest show.
Let me explain how it happened. We're doing a commercial where we're playing the laughs. Actually, the radio commercial is running now. We played the laughs, recorded live at the theater, and Renee is talking, and she's saying, these laughs were recorded live at our play, and I'm in it at Fabre, my husband Joe Bologna, and then she starts saying what the critics said about how funny it is, and she ends up saying, and Jackie Mason said, this is the funniest show, and I know funny. And I came and I said, why don't you imitate Jackie Mason? This happened live, and it was very funny, so we made that the commercial. I said, why don't you imitate Jackie Mason? So she says, This is the funniest show, and I know funny. No, you do it the way you did it.
Funniest show, and I know funny.
I said, actually imitate Jackie Mason.
You want me to try? I can do it very well. I know
this
very
is the
well.
funniest show, and I know. I said, no, that's not Jackie Mason. She says, you do it. I said, this is the funniest show, and I know funny. She says, that's not Jackie Mason. That's Jimmy Durante. So we made that commercial.
I'll do it for you. This is Jackie Mason. I want to tell you, I just saw a great show. The show is with Renee Taylor and Joe Bologna. It's the funny. If you don't know what funny, I know what funny is, so you got to be there. I bring all my lawyers there. I got about 400, and they come every night.
That's
they pack
funny.
the theater.
It's true.
That's
Every
right.
night a different lawyer of his comes backstage.
That's right.
And you know who else comes? We've gotten
He's got more lawyers than the Justice
I
Department.
think Jackie Mason could say anything and be funny. He doesn't have to. All he has to say, this is the table. You put the table here. I want to put the table there. You want to write over there? Suppose I want to write over there. I don't want to write over there. You want to write over there. So I'll write there and you write here. But suppose she wants to write.
You did a composite of Pat Cooper and Jackie Mason right now.
But you know what's so great is like,
No, Pat Cooper's got to be angry.
it's like comics
He
come
smashed
to
his
see
table 6
to
times.
see the show. 2-3 times comedians come. Larry Gelbar came 3 times. Carol Channing came twice. Billy Crystal came twice. And it's a real honor that the comedians appreciate comedy.
Not a comedian, but comedy writer. People understand how difficult. Like somebody like Jackie Mason, he knows how precious it is to get that audience to laugh that hard, that many times for that long. They appreciate the craft in it.
You're right.
Somebody who has no sense of humor has no idea what that is. I mean, like sometimes you have critics who literally in their lives not only have never made anybody laugh out loud, either in print or in life, but most likely have never even had the experience of throwing their head backs and roaring with laughter. It's a language that some people don't. You got to get it here, and you got to get it here, and you got to get it here.
It's a brilliant craft, and the reason Charlie Chaplin was so great. By the way, the hero of Jackie Mason is Charlie Chaplin. I always want to be a Charlie Chaplin. I don't know how to do it, but I wish I could be to this.
Well, there's nothing more serious than comedy.
Well, I mean, look what lasts. I mean, when you look at the great films, Charlie Chaplin will have a longer life than all those.
Absolutely. Bob Hope,
those other things.
Bob Hope,
sure. I mean, those films are still funny.
Jack Benny,
yeah. I mean,
George Burns,
they're classic.
He's a classic. How come they're half Jewish, all of them?
Fred Allen, you look at the old tapes when it was first starting, how funny they are.
Well, it's curious because it used to be when I was a kid, all the comedians were Jewish and all the singers were Italian. Now you're hard-pressed to find a young Jewish comic or a young Italian singer.
Why?
Because I think that old country thing, the Italians brought over this song from their the ethnic background, from their cultural roots, and the Jews brought over this sardonic humor, this ability to laugh at themselves.
Do you think we lost it?
I think it kind of dissipates.
No, but didn't we made humor about our circumstances, about how, the last generation was treated, how we were discriminated against, and that's what I think the Jewish sense of humor came from.
Absolutely.
And I think humor...
By the way, that's why Jews survived, by the way. They always had humor. They always had humor.
But can I tell you what a healing experience it is? That people come backstage and they say to me, I just had an operation and I was in a lot of physical pain and I laughed in your play and I feel wonderful now. So to experience that with the audience, that they laugh in some deep way.
Mothers see the show because the show is so much about mothers and daughters, because that's what's resolved in the end. The daughters break the chain, the symbiotic chain with their mothers, and they release them, these two unhappy women, and say, here, we're giving you this place. And it looks like a callous thing they're doing, but actually end up doing a wonderful thing because it leaves the mothers with no place to go other to either be destroyed or to have a life. And so many women come back and they say, they bring back their daughters, or the younger generation comes back and brings back their parents.
It sounds powerful. It really does. You know who opened up another dimension also when they did the first Wives Club, the movie?
Yeah.
I think that was brilliant. And I think it really started some kind of trend. And you know what? You get divorced at 35, 40, 45, and you think the world's over. And this really was an encouragement. And you hear people talk about it all the time. And what you're saying, too, these are two elderly women who really construct and get a new life.
And have sex, There's been a lot of sexual harassment and discrimination against women. We're not supposed to, mothers aren't supposed to have sex. And so it's really, the audience really applauds when I'm having an affair with him. That's something new. Years ago, people would have been very shocked about that. But he helps my arthritis because sex is supposed to be very good for your circulation.
Joe, you didn't know you're a doctor and a medic.
Sex, the most important things in life. 3 most important things. Sex, laughter, pasta. Not necessarily in that order.
Gefilte fish for Renee.
Hold the schmaltz.
You see guys like Letterman and Leno, and what kind of comedy are they bringing to this country today? Is it something that we're not familiar with, or it's just different? What's going on?
I think they're funny. I think Jay Leno's funny. I think they're both very funny monologists. They always made me laugh. I just think it's another generation. So we grow up laughing at the generation above us, the Jimmy Durantes and the George Burnses.
Sid Caesar. I never realized how Sid Caesar, how old he was. He was a baby when he had his own show. What was he, in his 30s?
Well, there's a genius. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
great...
Joe played him in that movie, my favorite year.
Is that right?
Yeah.
A good friend of mine is Red Buttons.
Oh, we
Red's a
love
good friend
Red.
of
And
ours,
I
yeah.
think
Red is seen in the show twice.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Red is a classic comedian.
Oh.
He's classic.
Red Buttons does... He has is the when they do whenever they do a testimonial for somebody or they do a charity
The
event.
Friars.
Whether it's the Friars or some banquet for a charity.
Never had a dinner.
That's right. No, Red always has to go on last because nobody can
can
follow
go
Red.
on after him.
Nobody can follow Red. Never had a dinner.
And look what vitamins have done for him.
Right.
Really?
You ever have meal with Red Buttons? It's 19 vitamins.
Yeah.
And,
great shape.
and you can't fight them.
Oh, it's working.
I was with him.
The Friars is playing tribute to us on September 15th.
Really?
Why? They shouldn't? You say really like you?
The last time I went to the Friars, poor Henny Youngman was very sick. Poor Joey Adams looked a little bit down.
Yeah,
you know.
but Richard Lewis, there's a whole new generation
Yeah, you
that's
got a
in
whole
the
new generation coming up.
Friars. Joy Behar is going to be the MC.
Joe, you're a writer of, I feel it, you know, there's something in there. Who would be people that you would like to emulate as a writer? I mean, I sense your
it's
your
hard to
creativity.
emulate. I mean, I can think of the people who had
Inspirations for you.
inspiration for me. I mean,
Japanese, right?
well, I mean, as far as comedy, I love the
Right.
black. You know, the black comedy writers, the writers of black comedy. Let's put it that way.
Right.
In the the 50s and 60s. Well, before that, Nathaniel West, who were Miss Lonely Hearts and his four great little novellas he wrote, all very funny, very black, and very touching. Then I thought Joe Heller. I love Joe Heller.
Oh, yeah.
I love Catch-22.
Catch-22.
I mean, I thought that was brilliantly comedic.
How about Simon?
Neil Simon. Yeah, well, I mean, Neil Simon. Well, we're kind of more well, he's a bit older. I mean, Neil Simon is the best at what he's a master at what he does.
Have you met him?
Oh, yeah.
He was in Chapter 2.
I was in...
Is he
the
depressed
movie
all the
agent.
time?
Depressed? Not when I was around him. I mean, he didn't...
I would say senior.
quiet.
He's probably the most successful.
oh, yeah, I mean, he's an industry.
Right. And if you read for yourself, you read fiction or you read autobiographies? It's an interesting
most of the
question,
time
by
I
the way.
read fiction, but recently I've been getting into historical. I mean, a lot of histories, and especially in New York. I'm really reading a lot. Well, so I'm working on a project with my son. That's a historical piece in New York.
our son too, right?
Yes.
Our son.
Our son.
No, but when I talk about him, I say
You say
my
my son too?
I said
Yeah.
the Italian boy. She says the Jewish boy. And he is. He's very Italian and very Jewish.
Bar mitzvah?
He was bar mitzvah.
mitzvah,
He's not a really, he's not.
His
He's not
son
super
was
religious.
circumcised, and he
He's
held.
Jewish by Jewish law because of Renee.
Yes.
Yes, and he held my grandson while the mohel cut him.
And he has no problem with his identity. He's very Jewish and he's very Italian.
He's a Holocaust scholar,
And
our
he,
son.
Is that right?
he studied the Kabbalah.
Really?
He's like, but on the other hand, he speaks far better Italian than I do. He named his son Giuliano Giovanni Bologna. When he and his wife, he got on a television show, and they eloped he got married on the island of Lipari, a little archipelago of Sicily, and so he's very Italian. He's very Jewish, and he married a girl who's half Swedish and half Greek.
It's a nice combination.
So our grandson.
And he's a writer and an actor too.
Really?
And what would he say first? He'd say first, just like Joe, he's a writer first and an actor
Where is he
second.
living?
California.
Did you ever work, the three of you?
Together? Yeah, we are now.
Well, I'm working on the screenplay with him. He was also in our
And I'm
movie.
going to do a play with him
He
afterwards.
did a part in our movie Love Is All There Is that was out last year. So we have worked together.
And it had to be you. He was Joe's
yes,
son
sir.
in that movie.
In a movie that
we
we-
love acting with him. He insists on auditioning for the part. He insisted on
He
screen
insists
testing.
on screen testing. He also insists on getting it.
Yes. He says, but I
We have
want
a
you
turn on
and
that.
everybody to see that I'm the best one for the part.
It's interesting. Where was he brought up? More in New York or more in California?
You know?
It was about 50-50.
But when we got to California,
he considers himself a New Yorker.
When he went to Beverly Hills High, the first day he came home and he said to me, Ma, I like poor kids better.
Really?
And we moved to California. He grew up in New York until he was about 6. At kindergarten, we moved to California, and we put him in school there. And after 2 or 3 years, I had to get out of there. I mean, now I don't mind it. Now it's like comfortable. But for years, it was
stifling.
it was like being on the moon.
Isn't it? Intellectually stifling?
Well, it was
The
more,
first
it was
day,
like,
I have to tell you, the first day that he went to the first grade, he said to both of us, we were writing there, so he wouldn't feel abandoned. We wrote at his public school. He came over and he said, I can't take much more of this, Ma.
So
I'm going to cry again. We got to cut for a commercial break. We'll come back with this adorable couple. I must confess, the first time I met them, but they're terrific, and I hope they come back. And I hope you go see Bermuda Avenue Triangle at the Promenade Theater. And you know what? It's your loss if you don't go, because you're going to
listen, to any of your viewers, if they mention your name, they'll get a discount.
Oh, my God. You hear that? Mention my name.
Just say Leon sent
Just
me
say
to the
Jackie
Boston.
Mason sent me. We'll be right back after commercial.
Ambassador.
It helps. We're back. We're talking to Joe Bologna and Renee Taylor, who are appearing at the Bermuda Avenue Triangle at the Promenade Theater. You mentioned my name. You get in for half price, or you get a double?
no,
what is
not
it?
half price. We don't know.
You get a minute-
What, 20%?
You
How's
get-
that,
you-
20%? That's a good Jewish
Let's negotiate.
20%.
20% of $50.
You know what? You'll have a
Yeah,
order.
what? That's
20%.
You're gonna
$10.
have a order.
They're
people
yelling.
at
The
that
producers
theater.
are going to yell at what did you do?
I'll tell you what you do.
20%,
If you're
$40.
Jewish and you're not Orthodox, you try to menage a trois way. You go 3 for 2. If you're Jewish and you are Orthodox, you better shut the show off. If you're Jewish and you're Orthodox and you have arthritis, you still have a good chance because you're going to laugh a lot. If you're not Jewish and you're Italian, you eat pasta and you'll get a meal.
You have to have the rabbi from our play on the show, Manny Kleinmetz, and he plays a reformed rabbi.
Is he
He's
wearing
very
yarmulke?
funny. No, he doesn't.
Oh, he's reformed.
He's reformed.
He doesn't need a yarmulke.
No.
Does he wear a cross?
No, but he wears
Reformed, yeah.
what he wears
belongs to
hot
the-
pants.
He belongs actually. He belongs to the Grand Reformed Temple of the Barely Jewish.
Our Lady of Perpetual Simchas. You hear that one?
No.
Van Harris, an old comedian, used to say that all the time. Our Lady of Perpetual Simchas.
Well, you know, we're going to have
The
our...
Lady of Perpetual Guilt, of course, is the famous Catholic.
We have our 32nd wedding anniversary coming up, and we're going to have an anniversary party because we've known each other 33 and a third years. We loved each other 1/3 of a lifetime.
It's beautiful. I mean, you're great, and it's great to see. You know what I notice? And tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. There's no jealousy here. You're together. Sometimes you have couples on, and the other one is trying to up this one and that one. I've seen it 100 times.
No, he's a wonderful supporting. When I was on The Nanny and I was nominated for an Emmy, you know what he did? He took an ad in the trades and said, vote for my wife.
Why not me? What about me?
No, he didn't. He said, vote for my wife. She's really
No, but you're a good interviewer.
talented.
You're a good interviewer.
Yeah, because you're interested in
You're
people.
interested, and also you know to direct questions at each of us.
Yeah.
See, what happens if somebody throws a question out, and we're both like, she's a yenter, I'm a chiacchierone, and we both like to talk. So the point is, you jump in and you say, then I have to step back because I have to be
No,
a
but
gentleman.
how many husbands would take an ad
I think
in
it's
Variety
beautiful.
and
I
say,
think it's
vote for
beautiful.
my wife? That was really
But,
nice.
There are very happily married people who've been together a long time who cannot work together. In our case, working together is not only doable, it's probably the strongest element of our marriage is that we love working together so much.
You know
And
what?
we
You
work
can't do comedy if you're angry.
You're either healthy or you went to good shrinks. Something happened. I'm telling you, it works.
No. From
And-
comedy, you have to love whoever
yeah,
you're
but
working
Renee,
with.
I've seen it, and I can name names, and I don't want to. And the way you talk about your son and your family, there's so much warmth there. It's just really beautiful. You're going to cry now. It's really beautiful.
But that's what it's all
and it's
about.
Nice. It's nice for our
You know what?
audience to
Show
see
business,
it.
you're rich, you're poor, you win awards, they say get out of town, right? You have a
Right.
lot of money, you have nothing.
What did you do
but-
last?
Right, but love is the thing. Love is the answer, and that is the reason you were born.
Well, it's nice for my audience to see because we do some tough shows.
Really?
I've been all over the world. I've been in the Gulf War. We televised from there. We did scudding when Israel was being scudded, and Jackie Mason was trying to put a gas mask on. He didn't know where to go. I didn't know what they're supposed to do with the mask. Is it supposed to go behind me? Before that, he was bombed. So we've been all over the world. We've seen a lot of tsuris. We've seen a lot of grief, and it's like the newspapers never write good stories. No one cares about good stories, and it's nice to see a great story. And
But
nice
I
to
love
see
his
good
family,
people.
too. They're Italians, and I love them. I think that I fell in love with his father, too. I loved his father. And when Joe and I were dating, he took me to this club. What was the club in Brooklyn? Not the...
Elegant?
Was it the Elegant in
The
Brooklyn?
Elegant.
Well, you
On-
appear.
No, the one on the highway. No, the one on the boulevard in the Bronx.
The
Anyway,
Bronx?
he took me in Brooklyn. That big club in Brooklyn. Maybe it was the Elegant. I don't know. Anyway, he said,
The
I have to
Elegant.
tell you something. I never said this to
was
any
the
woman.
Elegant.
Any woman in my life. And I thought, oh, my God, he's going to propose to me. He said, but I really love my father.
Really.
He was sharing with me how much he loved his
Beautiful.
father.
You know what Renee said to me a while back? She said, if you ever leave me, I'm going with you. That's the nicest thing anybody has ever said to me. No, but I
Joe-
can imagine if somebody you didn't like said that to you, you'd say, uh-oh, I'm going to be stalked.
Contrast for me living in L.A. versus New York.
Well, we were telling a story before about my son. We moved to L.A. when he was about 6, and we were there for 3 years. We came back to do our play, our last play at How to Be You in 1978. And, of course, we took Gabe out of school, and he was all upset about it, you know, I mean, the way kids are.
Sure.
And the first day he was going to school was the day of the subway strike. And we were living on Central Park West. And his school was over on North Fifth Avenue. In the 90s, we were in Central Park West in the 80s. To get there, I don't know if you remember it, there were no buses running, there were no subways running, and you had to...
Quill was the name of the guy. He was a union leader.
Right, and you had to flag down. What entrepreneurs were doing is they'd rent a van and they'd negotiate prices to take you across town.
Right.
So we would go in. Where you going? Okay, 5. Okay, I'll tell you here. And we get in the second, and now we're going through the park. And I look over at Gabe, who at the time was about 9, and I said, "Do you get this action in California?" And he said, "No," because I could see he was thrilled at what was going on. So I just think that...
No, do Harry Crane's joke about California.
No, it's not. It's a practical, I don't know who originally said the line, but California's the place where you move there when you're 35, 40 years old. You go take a swim in the pool. You come back in the house. You're 50. You have a martini. You're 60. I take a walk around the block and you're 70. But no, the basic difference is it's not so much the people. It's that New York is a city. California is a collection of suburbs.
Right.
New York has a heart. It has congestion. You can't have a city without congestion because that's what makes a city work. What's great about a city is the communal energy. Is when you walk down the street in a city, when you walk down the Champs-Élysées in Paris, you're not only an individual,
Right.
but you are part of everybody else. You're part of the energy. And that's the same in
A big city like that, by the way, is also Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv, I don't know Tel Aviv, but I love Jerusalem. Tel Aviv, I don't know that.
Tel Aviv has energy.
I don't know it that
Tremendous
way. I haven't
energy.
spent enough
Jerusalem
time there.
Have you been in Jerusalem?
I love
Yeah.
Jerusalem.
It's a
We
religious...
took our son there.
Jerusalem
Did you ever
has such
did you ever spend a Friday afternoon in Jerusalem when the sunset goes down?
man,
Everybody's
it's
getting
those-
for Shabbat. It's
When
nearly
you-
heavenly.
When you hit, that's the thing that impressed me the most, and I wasn't expecting. Let's put it this way:
Right.
was the color of those rocks,
Right.
that pink,
Right.
that pink.
We're
granite.
raising money for the University of Tel Aviv right now.
And there's such energy. I mean, you feel the ancient cultures there. You just feel that energy. That's just
Oh,
incredible.
yeah, it's everybody's...
But let me
That's
speak
one of the
on
cities I
behalf.
could live in.
Well,
Let
you're
me
a big
speak
star
on
there.
behalf of
Renee,
Beverly Hills.
Renee, wait a minute. In Israel, you're a big star because The Nanny is #1 in Israel.
Yes, that's a thrill. And the Israeli News Corps is always coming over to the set in California and interviewing everybody, and it's
There's
really
only one
great.
trouble with Israel.
What?
They don't speak enough Yiddish.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem. We love Yiddish. We love Yiddish. And
Yiddish over there, they look at.
my son had a tutor who taught him Yiddish. My son loves Yiddish, too.
Du redest Yiddish?
Yes, but you know what? We speak Yiddish in the show, and the audience loves it because
Not a lot, but just.
We had a
couple of-
woman on last week who wrote a book about Jews and the Depression, published by Yale University Press, and she studied Yiddish as an academic. She claims, I'm not sure it's true, that Yiddish is only an academic language today, and I'm not sure. I think there's a retrenchment. People are starting to learn again.
I agree.
There are words in Yiddish that you can't
But wait,
recognize.
before you go off the air, I want to say a few words on behalf of Beverly Hills, which is to some people is the promised land too. First it was Israel, and then they come and it's Beverly. Go from Israel to Beverly
No, it
Hills.
goes like this. It goes Pinsk, to the Lower East Side, to Great Neck, Long Island, to Israel, to Beverly Hills.
That's true.
That's the wandering Jew.
That's the Bermuda Triangle.
That's no,
but I like
Israelis moving into Beverly.
Yeah, a lot of Israelis.
Well, the climate's similar.
Yes, it is. It is. And it's also very relaxed there. And there's really just one season.
Do you keep a home there, too?
Yes, we have a lovely home there. With Shirley Temple's home. Pool? Yes.
I like to swim, so if
well, come for a visit.
We'll do the laps, you know?
Yeah. Bella Abzug has been a house guest. We've had a lot of wonderful house guests.
With her hat? Yeah.
You know what? I called Bella to tell her that we had a friend who, when Bella was a young lawyer, his father hired her to collect money. He was a landlord and he couldn't collect money.
He was a meat market.
Oh, he was a meat market and he had a building. And the tenants were not paying and he hired Bella to go around and collect money.
Joe, when you're out in California, are you intellectually stimulated?
It's hard. It's hard. I mean, if I'm working, if you're writing, it's great. If you're acting, it's if you're happy in what you're doing, you could be anywhere. But it's very difficult to get that energy. See, I like to be in Vermont or New York or the South Seas or Paris.
You like climate changes?
Well, I like it. When I'm in the country, I sense myself as an individual. It's just me and God. In the city, I sense myself as a communal being, as a social being.
Right.
You know, like the Christians or the Catholics would call that energy the Holy Ghost, where we're all part of the same. We all, I mean, we all came from the same matter in the universe. We're all part of each other, and that's what you get in the city. That energy is what, and the architecture and the constant tumult that goes on is wonderful.
Electricity.
It's electricity that you can't.
You'll never get bored with this man, Renee.
You can't.
He's got a great mind. You can hear it.
But she loved Beverly because she grew up in Miami Beach. She sees a palm tree and it's very nostalgic for her. So she loves.
I thought only people move there. I don't think they grow up there.
I grew up there.
Really?
Because my father's haberdashery business.
We
went bankrupt. Whenever we went bankrupt, then we changed cities, so we moved to Miami. And he had a fruit shipping business there for a while. And then the hurricane came, and he came back to New York. He was back to haberdashery.
But your youth was in Miami Beach?
Yes, growing up there. It was wonderful.
I have never watched The Nanny because
you should.
At home. I will.
It's in the what's the Jewish Museum on Fifth Avenue. They have clips from Molly Goldberg, who I loved when I was a kid. I used to love that show.
And Rosalind. Rosalind was her daughter, right?
Yes.
And Eli Mintz or something?
Yes, I loved him.
That was a great show.
Great show.
What do you think of Seinfeld?
Oh, I love that show.
You love that show?
Very warm.
Terrific. Very
warm. Very funny.
Seinfeld?
Yes, as a matter of fact, when we went to the Emmys last year, he said, you know, your movie, Made for Each Other, is one of my favorite all-time movies, and that was a big compliment.
It seems like he has a lot of humility for a fellow who's making a lot of,
Yes.
Yeah, he seems like a real mensch. And the show is very laid back and very inventive.
You said something,
very easy to watch.
You said something very important, too, about comedy. Look at Bill Cosby. Look what he went through now. And yet he can get on the stage and do comedy. I mean, how does that happen, Joe? How do you overcome it? Or it's just going to work?
I mean,
what is it?
It's healing. It's healing and it's inspiring. And you not only want to inspire other people, you need to inspire yourself.
And not only that, there is
when you heal people with the laughter, you heal yourself. And he needs to be healed right now.
And you can't. I mean, I understand this lunatic murdered his son. Right. Now, if he throws in the towel, he murdered him too.
That's true.
It's a double murder.
That's very.
You can't, and I don't know how you do it because the pain of that has got to be so excruciating, and to work through that because I know a lot of people have lost their sons prematurely, their children prematurely, and I know how long it takes them for that pain to leave their faces, and maybe it never does.
But that's what that's what great comics have. From their pain, they make laughter because it's a way to survive.
And I'll hold you for 1 second, go back to a commercial break because Payne Weber likes to tell people that they're selling securities and the Jewish National Fund wants to tell them they're planting trees. So we'll be right back. We're back with Joe Bologna and Renee Taylor, who are prailing on Broadway at Bermuda Avenue Triangle. It's a Promenade Theater, 77th Street and Broadway. You mentioned my name. you get some kind of discount or frozen free yogurt or schmaltz. Something happens if you mention my name. So mention my name. What do you got to lose? We're not allowed to sell tickets on this show. Otherwise, we would do it for you. But postnished, this is PBS, and PBS doesn't allow you to sell tickets.
You know, Joe was going to be a priest when he was young, so that's why he's
that.
such a good man. He's very spiritual.
I believe that. Did you go to Catholic school?
Yes, I went to a Jesuit school.
Tell me the truth. Who killed Christ?
Lou.
Lou? What were you taught in Catholic school about that?
No, I wasn't taught that the Jews killed Christ. I mean, first I was educated by the Jesuits, who were a lot more sophisticated than, maybe some,
hard rock.
Some backwoods nuns somewhere. I don't know, but I wasn't taught that. Maybe other kids were. I was taught that,
So when you were a child,
I was taught.
Was there any anti-Semitism?
Christ was a Jew.
Was there
sure there was anti-Semitism.
In you?
In me?
No.
I don't
and his
think
family
so.
loved that I was Jewish. Did your family love that I was Jewish?
Anybody ever asked you that question?
No, but it's a valid question.
No, but anybody ever ask it?
No, I don't think anybody's asked it.
On television, they'll never ask it.
But it's a valid question.
Absolutely.
Because I would say, I got to think back and I say, was there a couple of, you might have been Jewish past anti-Semitic remarks, but I don't think there was. It was malicious because two of my best friends were Jews, and I never really.
But the Jews in those days had a reverse
and I wasn't
discrimination.
In my father's time, when my father lived on the Lower East Side, and there was that line of demarcation that the Jews were here, and the Italians were here, and the Chinese were there. Then it was there, and the Irish were here. I tell you the truth, I had more trouble with the Irish. I mean, my fights were always with the Irish. The ones who called me Wamp or Guineas weren't Jews, were the Irish. Again, not that I had anything against the Irish.
Did your family love the fact that you were marrying somebody Jewish? Didn't your father, the only warning was he said, Jews wear the pants, so watch out. Didn't your father say that?
My father thought Renee was like from Mars. I mean, he didn't know from a strong woman with a career. To me, you marry a mamarel, somebody you put in the kitchen.
That's what Pat Cooper
Conversely,
says.
on my grandmother's side, my mother's mother, came over here with the apocryphal story of the older man coming back to the old country and throwing money around and saying the streets are paved with gold, and he is given the hand of the prettiest young girl in the village, and he takes her back to a tenement, and he's a shoemaker.
Right.
So, and he was also an alcoholic. So, my grandmother at 16 years old and pregnant was living among Jews in East New York, Osborne Street. And and these Jewish women took care of her. So to her, Jews were like, my sister married a Protestant. She didn't speak that for 3 years. I married a Jew. She threw her arms around.
No, but but his mother said he's going to marry a funny Jewish blonde that's on television, and they thought it was Virginia Graham.
But, sometimes Jews in those days had a reverse, they were discriminating against non-Jews. I mean, they talk about the goy and in a pejorative term. And
Shiksa, yeah.
The shiksa.
How about Jews discriminating against other Jews?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Litziana, Litvak.
Litvak, Galiziana. I mean, you have that in the Italians, too, between Northern Italian and Southern Italian. You have the blacks between the fair-skinned blacks and the dark-skinned blacks have their own
I'm sure,
discrimination.
You're an intellect. I'm sure you've thought about this. How do you bring this world together, really? Joe, that's a tough question, obviously, but I'm sure when you were looking at the sky in Vermont, you've thought about this question.
You bring the world together, and you don't only think utopian because you don't know how that happens. It happens. To me, it comes. That's what's great about a great city. With all the craziness in New York, with all the things that go on, there's a sense of community here. There's a sense of a place, and people have to intermingle. And I don't know how to do it, but the trick is to be an individual.
But you, too, are a living example. You're going to have a very good intermarriage, have a great community.
Well, it's hard, but how many people don't have...
No, but I say you bring people together because you have a sense of that we're all the same. Well, you have empathy and you have compassion, and when you meet somebody who's gay or who's a different color than you or who's an Indian, you say, you're me and I'm you, and it's all the same. And, ancestors, lifetime to lifetime. If you believe in reincarnation, then it has nothing to do with who your family is because the world is your family.
So the trick is that in any relationship, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a family, whether it's a town, whether it's a city, is to be an individual and to experience separateness and togetherness at the same time.
And you can only do that through understanding, by the way.
Well, you have to.
And not tolerance. You know, when you tolerate someone, you put yourself on a different level. It's totally different.
You know, understand is to stand under.
Right. Very well said. Touché. I was very involved in Camp David, and people did a film on my life, and in that film they asked me, why was I so passionate to try and get this peace between Egypt and Israel? And I ran around, I gained a lot of weight, you know, it was tough. And I said I was in the Yom Kippur War. I reported back on the Yom Kippur War for a radio station, and I saw so much death, and I saw it on both sides, and I could never understand it. 20 years later, after we did Camp David, I saw such friendship between the Egyptians and the Israelis, and all discussing how their kids were killed in battles. There's some place someone has to come and make people think that they can live together, and I don't know how you do it, you know. And I don't want to get that serious because we got to get to comedy. But as you said before, and I want to ask you about The Nanny. Behind every good comedy is a serious thought. I mean, you're doing something with laughter that is trying to be conveyed to people. And I want to ask you what the theme of The Nanny is really. What are they trying to...
A fish out of water. Actually, it's a poor girl who's with the English. We always think English people are better. Anglo-Saxons are better. And he really looks to her for warmth, for nurturing, for understanding. So the fish out of water is really not really the nanny, but the English family that is shy on feeling.
Who does the writing?
Fran and her husband Peter and a wonderful staff.
They write it? Yeah.
They write it. They created it, yeah. And from the very beginning they said, you're going to play Fran's mother. Fran
Really?
saw a movie that we did, and she said to her husband, someday Renee's going to play my mother, and I did.
The Seinfeld repertory crew made a big thing of the fact that Seinfeld was pulling in tons of money for NBC, and the other actors in the show were not getting as much. Do you think that's fair? That's a fair
Listen,
comment?
my theory is that everybody should be a billionaire, that there's plenty for everybody. There is not a scarcity in the world of food, of water, that we should all be rich, and we should all help each other to get rich. And I don't look at... We should all make $100 million, and it could happen. It could happen, and the world would only get to be more, not less. I don't think that we should compete except with ourselves to be as the best that we can be.
Joe, tell that story you told me during our commercial break with your grandfather. That's a terrific story.
My grandfather, my family's business was a shoe shine, hat cleaning business. My grandfather started the business with a shine box on Wall Street when he first came over, and from that he built up a business where he had several stands where they shined shoes and cleaned hats and sold shoelaces and shoe polish, and he also had men who fanned out from these stands that went up into the offices and shine shoes.
Right.
So they in 1929. He was worth over $1 million in paper because his customers, he had the biggest, his customers were Franklin Roosevelt, Thomas E. Dewey, the head of the Firestone law firm, the head of Salomon Brothers. These were his customers, so he had all these tips. And, of course, he lost the money, actually, because he covered everybody's margins, all his son's margins. He probably would have made a lot of money. And there's a famous story in the book. I think the name of the book was The Day the Stock Market Crashed. And in it, there's a story that Joe Kennedy told, that he was talking to his shoe shine boy, who was, a 19-year-old kid, who was giving him tips on the market.
Who was giving who?
He was giving Joe Kennedy tips.
The 19-year-old kid?
And Joe Kennedy went back and said, when my 19-year-old bootblack is giving me tips, it's time to get out of the market. And that kid was my Uncle Pat.
Really?
Pat Bologna. Who then, he and my father took over the business, and Pat, by the way, became almost like a folk character.
That's a great story.
On Wall Street. Pat, over the years, printed his own stock market report. He had his own financial report. And it was like about 2 steps to the right of King Victor Emmanuel of Italy. It was very funny, but he was very funny.
We're going out of time. We got 1 minute. Renee, you've been a pleasure to meet.
Thank you. You too. And you bring your wife soon to see it, and come backstage.
I will come back
and tell us how much you laughed. If you wet your pants laughing.
Oh, my God, on these bloomers. Joe, you've been a real pleasure.
Hey, it was a pleasure to be here.
Keep it up. I mean, the show business, the world needs people like you, and it's really an inspiration. Renee,
thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. We can't beat a show like this. This is human and funny.
What?